and Fred's bleeding all over the place. And eventually one of the bartenders or something was like a nurse and had a bottle of Gorilla Glue and glued Fred's head shut. And so for the next like 2 weeks of the tour, he just had this big glob of Gorilla Glue, like a weird like lesion just like stuck to his forehead.
I'm not alone, I get lost in the crowd 'cause I'm working in a doom town.
Hello, welcome to 3 Gigs, the podcast that tells the stories of 3 gigs that have had a profound effect on a performer's life and career. The first show, the best show, and the worst show. I'm your host, Dominic Davey, and today my guest is Peter Niven, guitarist and vocalist for the Atom Age.
No! So tell me, where have you been? Nobody told you I'm a waster, baby!
This episode of 3 Gigs is brought to you by FreshCleanTees.com. It works like a shave club, but they send you t-shirts, super awesome t-shirts. And they have a special offer for all the listeners of 3 Gigs. Save 20% off your first order by going to freshcleantees.com and entering the coupon code GIG at checkout. That's freshcleantees.com with offer code GIG. Hailing from Oakland, California, the Atom Age first appeared on everyone's radar in 2009. And they found their inspiration from dust-covered collections of 60s punk and R&B. They would immediately hit the road and start to tour heavily. And along the way, they would develop their powerful live show and unique style. This led to, in 2012, hooking up with Asian Man Records. In fact, you can see episode 29 of my podcast for more on Mike Park, the owner of Asian Man Records. But this partnership would lead to 2 full links on the label, which most recently was 2015's Hot Shame. Peter Niven serves as the co-vocalist and one of the guitarists for the group, and I've known Peter for a bit now, and I've always been impressed with the Atom Age. They have an incredible sound, and they hold nothing back when they play live. They are pretty awesome. And now, since the Atom Age will be playing with my band Tsunami Bomb in San Francisco this coming weekend at the Bottom of the Hill, I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to finally have him on the show, and thankfully, he agreed. And being the tour beast that Atom Age is, I had a feeling that Peter would have a lot of stories to tell, and I wasn't disappointed. And as always, we're going to start with the very first show.
Okay. Well, I guess it's probably the first Atom Age show I ever played which was almost my first show ever, was Halloween of 2008. And back then, we really didn't know how to book any shows. You know, we were 19 years old, and we were doing stuff on MySpace.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So we booked this house show in Los Baños, which is about halfway between the Bay Area and LA.
I'm very familiar with that town, actually. My roommate was from there, and then one of my old singers was from there. Yeah, I know that town very well. Out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Totally nowhere. So we show up, and it's some, just some kid's parents' backyard, and we're like, all right, let's rock it. We were just stoked to be there. And first song, 30 seconds in, the cops show up. And this, mind you, this is after a couple bands have already played. And since then, this has been a running theme of our band. Anytime we try and play a house show, is we will get it shut down for being too loud.
You guys just you do that every time? That's your thing?
Dude, I don't want to say it's every time, but 75% of every house show we have ever played, we get the cops called on us.
Okay.
It just happens.
You know what?
Like,
I'm actually not. I'm gonna actually jump in here and say I'm not
Yeah.
surprised because I have
Yeah.
seen your band play, and for the people who are listening who have not, this is their first introduction to you and the Atom Age. You guys don't play quietly. You don't come to a show to play staring at your shoes. You guys are pretty balls to the wall. Like, you go for it. So I kind of imagine that you shutting down house parties. I can sit here and laugh and pretend that's shocking, but really it's not. Come on. Like,
yeah. We're all pretty big gearheads in the band, so like, you know, we all have like the loudest amps and all that. So it's just, we don't give like, it's pretty, we're pretty relentless about that.
You don't hold back.
Anyway, so the show got shut down, and so we were like, all right, what do we do? And then I was managing a movie theater at the time, a small like one-screen movie theater in Menlo Park, and some of the employees were having a Halloween party that night, and so we just drove up and just played a show inside a movie theater at this Halloween party. And
that's right.
You know, probably all the kids were like, what the fuck is this? Like, you know, like, who the fuck are these assholes? Like, turn this off. But yeah, you know, so that was the first Atom Age show almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. That's really great. Oh, that's awesome. So this is your 10th. This is your band's 10th year. That's awesome.
It is our 10th year. Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
I know. Yeah.
So those were the shows that like made you guys go, all right, because you said like this was one of your first. It was close to being your first show ever. So Atom Age is one of your first bands.
Yeah, pretty much. Like before that, I had briefly played like filling in bass with another band that like did a little tour, and then other than that, it was just playing with my high school band. And man, I can't even remember what my first, you know, high school show was. Fuck, like that's yeah. But so usually when somebody asks something like that, I'm like, all right, first Atom Age show. That's a good starting point.
No, that is a good starting point because, like, especially with the house parties getting shut down by the cops, it does set a pretty good, like, your band's gonna be pretty wild. You're one of the wild bands. So
yeah, I guess we took it as a good sign. I mean, honestly, it's been more hurtful to us than anything else. But, you know, we like to think it makes us cool, but I'm sure everybody else is just pissed in the crowd and has to listen to our loud ass band. But all right, you know.
Hey, if you only get to walk away from these shows with one thing, it's how cool they are to tell the story later.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not at the moment, but later it's cool. All right. Man, so those are good. House parties that get shut down by the cops every time. Good to know. Yeah. Noted. I'm never inviting you guys to my own house party. So, all right. So then, what would be, you think, one of the best shows you played of all time? Like a moment when you're like, wow, this is really awesome. This is the moment.
Well, I mean, there's a couple.
Yeah.
But
you can tell a couple.
Okay, cool. Yeah. The first one that comes to mind was actually earlier this year. We were in Europe. We were in France, actually, about an hour south of Paris, for this festival called the Cosmic Trip, which is like, you know, it's like this garage psych festival that they've been doing there for like 20 years. It's super fun. Like, it's the kind of show where, like, well, I mean, you know, the bands start at like noon and people are already getting fucked up. And then like the music goes until, well, the live bands go until like 2 a.m. And then there's DJs spinning like 45s of like, you know, classic rock and roll and shit until like 8 in the morning. So, you know, it's just like fucking nonstop. Like all the bands have an entire like hotel to themselves. Like, cause you know, there's like 50 bands or whatever. So it's just like total fucking rage status, like totally nuts. But so we had our band we have a keyboard player that plays like a vintage organ like from the 60s, so it's super delicate. And we decided to bring one with us to fly to Europe, but we did it on the cheap. So I straight up packed it in a cardboard box with some packing blankets and covered it in duct tape and checked it.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Straight up. Oh
dude.
no, we posted a picture of it and everything. Yeah.
Okay, before I even know how it ended, do you realize like our keyboard player flew across the country with a soft case. They unpacked her keyboard, put the keyboard stand on top of the keyboard, and when we got to the very first show of the run, a bunch of keys were just shattered. Like, they unpacked it, looked at it, and then put it back wrong, and it just got crunched.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's horrible.
Yeah, I just finally fixed it. It's like now it's fixed. She has two of them, but like I finally fixed the West Coast one, the one that got broken. But like, and you packed yours with, you guys packed your vintage 60s like keyboard in Farfisa keyboard.
It's actually sitting right next to me. I'm actually chilling in my workshop right now. It's right here with, and it's funny, man. Like, so we checked it like that. So obviously when we get there, it survived the flight, but it got fucked up a little bit. So I here in Oakland, like I have an electronics repair shop. Like that's like my day job.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I knew what to expect when it came to fixing it. So I got it pretty much like literally like the pieces of wood like holding the case together are falling off. Like, this thing is like, it looks like you pulled it out of a swamp. Anyways, so fast forward to the show. We're sound checking and fucking the organ's kind of fucking up a little bit. But like, we just managed to, like knock a few, contacts into place and like get it working. We're like, okay, all right. If we can just not move it at all, we'll survive the show. And then we'll like, do the serious repairs tomorrow. Like, let's just fucking do this. And then when we get on stage, sure enough, the keyboard just is not working at all. Just dead. And so I run over to the sound tech, like the monitor stage mix, because this is a huge stage. We're playing in front of like maybe like 800 people. Like it's a big room. And
right.
And fucking so I go over to the monitor mix guy and he's like, oh yeah, I got a soldering iron and some stuff, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna do this. So on stage,
your band is so lucky they have you. Oh my God. So many bands would just be screwed. Like this story. Yeah. Like most people do not know how to whip out a soldering iron and go, okay, I can fix it. Okay, go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's a gift. No, it's a gift and a curse because trust me, because of that, I fucking fix a lot of my own gear, and then sometimes shit breaks on stage. And it can be a disaster. So it can go good and it can go wrong. And,
Okay.
It's a little bit of everything.
All right.
Anyways, yeah. So it's broken on stage. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a Hail Mary. I had an idea of what the problem was, like deep in the like the power supply of the keyboard. And so I ripped the thing apart right there on stage, and I had brought some extra components with me. And I solder this thing in place, and it's literally like imagine you're in like an operating room, and it's like a really intense, like, somebody comes in with like a fatal gunshot wound, right. And like it's this hyper intensity, like like straight out of like a fucking movie or something, and everybody's like crowding around, and I'm like, hand me this, hand me that, blah, 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 like totally like a whatever. And,
that's so awesome.
and so I fix it, and the thing, and I replace this part, and the thing comes back to life, and we're all like cheering, and like, you know, it was totally like unreal. And literally like 3 minutes after that, we start our set.
Wow.
And we just like ripped through it, and, you know, just had this awesome, because, you know, we were all like, you know, adrenaline rush, like, you know, just you know, this shit just happened. So yeah, it ended up being an awesome show. And yeah, that's one of my best ones.
That's intense, dude. That is super intense. Yeah. Like last minute, like surgery on a far piece of organ. Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's impressive. Like, it's funny how that happens though, man. Cause like one of my best shows was a show where, the guitarist slammed my finger into a car door while I was doing the van's windows. And, I had been having so many problems with it. Like it was just turning black and swollen, and it was so painful. I could barely play. Like at one point I almost like lost consciousness. It was so painful as I'm trying to not use it while playing my bass. And these shows we're playing with the Vandals, and it's just packed every night. And I went to the doctor finally, and they drilled a hole in my nail and bled it out.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it like squirted blood all over the place. Not to be gross, like it just squirted, and like all this blood came out, and they relieved the pressure. And and the doctor was like, "Is that better?" And I was like, "Oh my god, it's so much better." So they wrapped me up, and people they're calling like, "The band's almost done. You got to get here. The band's almost done. Are you guys got to get here? When are you going to get here? Oh my God, when are you going to get here?" I was like, "We're coming. We're in the taxi cab. We're on our way." And then I get there, and it was like one of those moments out of, they show on like metal videos or something, where I get out of the cab and I immediately, like, everybody's waiting for me. They grab me. Somebody else pays the cab. They're pulling me through. I hear the crowd chanting Tsunami Bomb. Like, they're like rushing me on stage, and the band's like, "Oh, thank God you're here." And somebody literally, like, our tech tosses me our bass, and I come out and I just like, and everyone starts cheering, and we go at it. And then I proceed to bleed all over. But it's one of the best shows ever. That's the penny version of that show.
God.
But it's like one of those things where it really, for some reason, when it comes down to that minute, like if you can just get there, if you're like the adrenaline alone of that, you pulled this off and you made it at the last minute, and you're on stage right when you needed to be, and then you just tear into it, like you don't even think about it.
But yeah,
those
nothing. That's the best feeling. Yeah, when you
I mean, there would have been no way. I feel like if I'd have been at your show, I was on that stage, I was like seeing you open up an entire keyboard and start soldering. I'm like, they literally have 5 minutes before they go on. This is definitely going to cut into their set. There's no way he's going to pull this off.
Oh yeah, dude, the stage manager was giving me the dirtiest look. It was like, and I was like, dude, I don't blame you. Like, I wouldn't, if I was in your situation, I wouldn't trust me. But like, this is a fucking, this is a Hail Mary situation, so give me a break here.
Yeah, this is happening. Yeah. Buckle up, Buttercup. We're on this ride. This is happening.
Straight up. Yeah, either way, this is happening.
So that's awesome. All right. That's a pretty good best show. And it's also funny that most of the best shows that I get on the show, and I almost say this now every time because it's almost every time, inevitably, if the bands tour Europe, they talk about shows in Europe being some of the best shows ever. And I mean, I've toured Europe. It's awesome. But
yeah, Europe it's a magical place where people like rock and roll.
I do feel like this is a little bit less of a hold up on just giving themselves over into the music.
Yeah, exactly. They're much more willing to be like, to listen to a band for the first time and just be like, yeah, all right, I'm sold. I'm a fan. As opposed to, any show in America where it's like, it's tricky to get people to like your band. It ain't easy.
No, it's tough.
Yeah.
there's like, I know, I like it. Like, yeah, it's hard. People don't care.
Yeah. It's really hard to make people care. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people. I think this is partially me thinking about the day I've had. trying to get to this show that we're playing together this week. But like, I think part of me is like, and they don't understand like how much work goes into just making this thing, this amazing thing happen. Like just
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
Like for such a dumb, trivial thing when it comes down to it, it's like, man, I just want to get up on stage and make some, like, be loud, man. Like, and you know how much work you have to do that is it's pretty absurd when it comes down to it.
Yeah, no, it is absurd. It's like, and yeah, and it's just like you're just like, I just want to play my songs, man. Like I just want to play. I had some ideas. I want to share them. I think you'll like it. You know, I don't know.
But I think that's kind of like what builds, you know, character and whatnot. Is you need to spend years like in the thick of it, just playing to no one, and just like, you know, to really, like, I feel like the only way to do it is you just gotta humble your ass, you know? Like you gotta play enough shows in front of no one where you're eventually just like, all right, I get it. Like the only way I can be doing this is if I'm doing it for myself, because clearly it's very difficult to get anyone else to give a shit. So you're doing what you love.
I would say that's totally true. I think you nailed it. I mean, it's funny because I just read that there's an article floating around with Quincy Jones, and I think it's amazing.
Oh, yeah, I just read that.
Yeah, it's spectacular. And
it's so good.
He holds nothing back and gives no fucks. But in the end, my favorite thing he had to say, I mean, he had a lot to say, and everyone should read this. I think it was it's in a lot of places now, but I think it's sitting in GQ magazine. And he just, the best thing he says is that he never did any project for money. It's like he did it because he thought he could make something amazing. Like that he wanted to, it was something that he wanted to push, he wanted to try, he wanted to do, he wanted just to do something great. He never sat there and, I forget what question they asked him about it, like probably what project made you the most money. And he was like, dude, I never did anything for money. I did it, you know, I made money and there were things that made me rich and there are things that really, really paid. But really, he goes, man, I was just making music because I want to make music and I want to do it. And I think the same thing in the sense, I'm not the best bass player. I never will be. That's not going to be something that they put next to my name. But I know if you give me a bass and you put me on a stage, I'm going to play the shit out of that bass. Like, you know, I'm going to make that moment. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm not going to hold back. So, you know, that's one thing I can count on is that and over the years, you know, I'll never forget it's like people have told me, you know, how do I get big? How do I do stuff? How do I get somewhere when I was a kid? And everyone would just be like, just play. And now that I'm older, I see that wisdom. It's like, just play. Just play.
Yeah.
If you're
just shut up and play.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like that's,
just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it and you'll find your way. I mean, people will notice if it's, you know, if it's what you're doing. If that's what you want people to notice, or, you know, then you find there's different goals that you can have too, you know, well, your own accomplishment. Really, in the end, you're just playing with, it's just you. You said it. I'm saying it 50 different ways. You said it the right way the first time. But, all right.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So you gave me some great stories about your first show, House Party in Los Banos, which is the closest to middle of nowhere that you can get in California. We've heard about some amazing close calls but epic shows in Europe and France. All right. So tell me about so if having to open up a keyboard minutes before you go on counts as one of your best shows, I'm really curious as to what you consider one of your worst shows of all time.
Okay. This one I had to think a lot about this one because it's hard to come up. The tricky thing is it's hard to think because, okay, we've been like, it's anytime I like, you know, try and tell somebody about about what it's like playing in my band or doing whatever. Like, it's hard to overstate how many awful shows I've played. I'm talking like going on tour, like I'm talking about going on tours that you booked via MySpace and showing up and the venue's closed down, or fucking there's two people there, or the bartender doesn't even know that there's a band playing tonight. Like, okay, I've done that all, like, many times, and man, there's a lot of bad shows, but those aren't always that interesting. So I think I'm going to go with one that's kind of a combo of a really good show and a really bad show.
All right.
Because I don't know, we'll see how this one goes, and then we can anyway, so this was, I think, sometime last year, and we played a show in San Antonio, and afterwards it was storming like crazy hard, like really ominous levels of, like, thunder and rain and whatever. So we go to a Taco Cabana, which is this is like a Texas chain of, it's kind of like a better Taco Bell.
I know Taco Cabana. Yes.
Yeah.
And they have margaritas. Yes.
Good. Anyways, we go to a Taco Cabana, and I think it's fine. Wake up the next day, and I've got food poisoning. Like, it's coming down hard.
Oh.
Like, I'm throwing up. It's just it's bad. So the next night we're playing in Dallas, and Dallas is like, it's almost like a hometown show for us because our keyboard player and our drummer are from Dallas.
Oh,
so,
okay.
And they're probably like the two like most social members of our band. So, like, they're the ones that like have groups of friends that come out to shows. Like, I can't bring fucking anything to
they're the nice ones that actually socialize and have a life and can like function in society. That's what you're saying. They can actually function. Okay, fair.
Yeah, So so Dallas is always like a no-brainer. We're gonna have a killer show. So show up and set up, and I'm just like, I'm gonna power through it. Like, there's nothing we can do. Like, we just got to go through it. And so, but like literally, I am throwing up until the minute before we get on stage. I didn't sound check. I had everybody, like other guys, set up my gear, everything. I'm literally just chilling in the van until the minute before we go on, and we just blast through like 20-minute set, like, just abbreviated, like, ballsy set. And man, we were slaying. Like, the crowd was, the room is packed. There's like a couple hundred people in there, and it is a great show. But man, like, at the end of it, I couldn't do the last song. Like, straight up, I threw my guitar off of me and just ran outside and started throwing up again. While that was happening, the show kind of, like, comes to a screeching halt, where I jump off stage, and Fred, our keyboard player, he's like flipping off his friends in the crowd, like, just like dicking around or whatever. And one of his friends is like super hammered and throws a full beer at Fred and hits him in the fucking head.
Oh,
and
no.
Like a full tall boy. And it cracks his head open, like bleeding all over the place. And it's really funny because we were crashing. The friend who did that, the dude we were crashing with that night, like, he's a good friend, like, still, he's an awesome dude. But, it was like total just wrong, the wrong move, wrong time thing. So He gets kicked out. and Fred's bleeding all over the place. And eventually one of the bartenders or something was like a nurse and had a bottle of Gorilla Glue and glued Fred's head shut. And so for the next like 2 weeks of the tour, he just had this big glob of Gorilla Glue, like a weird like lesion just like stuck to his forehead. It was really funny.
Oh my God.
But then, yeah. So yeah, man.
Yeah, there's no real way to end that story other than how you just did. Like, and then we survived. We lived.
Yeah, we survived.
Wow.
No, it was pretty great. I'm pretty sure Fred actually like got lucky that night with like some girl like while he's bleeding out of his head.
Are you serious?
It's pretty funny.
That's amazing. It's because it's like, oh, you know, he took it like a champ and kept playing, and he got respect for it. You know, people are like, yeah, man, that guy can take a hit.
Yeah, he can take a hit.
Oh man, that's a rough show. That's legitimately a rough show. So wait, did he get hit when you left, or was you still on stage at that point?
No, I was off stage at
okay,
this point.
So you'd already...
I run off. Yeah.
Honestly, I can imagine the stories the next day. Like, so yeah, like the guitarist like took off and he threw up outside. While he was throwing up outside, some dude like hucked a fucking tall boy at the fucking other guy, and then so the keyboard player, and then he started bleeding all over the place. And it was like, the show was amazing. And then my girlfriend went home with the keyboard player. Like, and I was like, oh, wow.
Like, I can't, it's weird because, I don't know, maybe I just blocked all the really, really bad shows out of my memory. But, like, all the ones, I can't think of a really interesting, really bad show. All I can think of is just the painfully boring, like just if I tell, like, you know, just bring you to tears, bad and boring show stories like that. I have a million of those, but yeah, I don't know. So I guess I'll say that's my bad.
I think you nailed it though. Honestly. You've been listening to Peter Niven from the band The Atom Age. The Atom Age will be appearing this Saturday, February 17th at the Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco, California with my band, Tsunami Bomb. And then they will be heading out on a U.S. tour with Agent Orange in March. So for more information on that tour and just more information on The Atom Age, check out their site at theatomage.squarespace.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to 3 Gigs this week. Feel free to check out our website at 3gigspodcast.com to find extras and live footage for all of our guests, including some live footage of The Atom Age. And you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram just by searching 3 Gigs Podcast. You can let us know what you think of the show and who you'd like to see on the show in the future. I want to hear from you. Let me know. I'll try and get them. Now, if you are enjoying the show and would like to do me a solid, please head over to our iTunes page if you listen to us on iTunes or on your iPhone, and look us up. Give us a quick rating and review. iTunes uses the amount of ratings and reviews to determine the reach of the show, so the more we have and the better they are, the more people find us. So review and the rating would be much appreciated. That's why I always ask for it. The theme today was Wastoid by The Atom Age off of the album Hot Shame, out now on Asian Man Records. And we're closing with Too Much Fun off of the free EP available on their Bandcamp. But the song is also on Hot Shame, so you can't miss. It's an awesome album. Just grab it. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Dominic Davy. This has been 3 Gigs. We'll see you next time. Take care. Still there? Okay, awesome. Listen, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to it. I wanted to take a moment and let you know that my band, Tsunami Bomb, has some shows coming up, and I'd love for you guys to come out and see us. I'd also like to meet you and talk about what your first, best, and worst shows were of all time. I want to hear your stories. So here's the deal. In May, my band is heading out to the East Coast, and we cannot wait. On May 16th, we'll be returning to the Kung Fu Necktie in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And on May 17th, we'll be actually going to the Boston area for the first time in a decade, and we'll be at the Once Ballroom in Somerville, Massachusetts. On May 18th, we're actually heading all the way north to take part in the 8th annual Pouza Fest in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada, with bands like Real Big Fish, Anti-Flag, Get Dead, War on Women, A Wilhelm Scream, Cancer Bats, The New Trust, and more. And we finish the whole run on May 19th at the El Cortez in Brooklyn, New York, with Trashy and Fat Heaven. And we played with Trashy the last time we were in New York, and it was incredible, so we cannot wait to see them again. You can get tickets for all the shows at all of the various venues, or you can make it easy by just going to our website at tsunamibomb.net. All the links are there. Super easy. Now, to be honest, I'm hoping these shows will end up more on your best lists than your worst lists, but you'll never know until you see us. So you should just come out and say hi and hang out. So hopefully we'll see you there. Thanks a lot.